Ich darf mit einem herzlichen Dankeschön beginnen. Dankeschön allen Ihnen, die hier in diesem Saal sind, weil viele von Ihnen, die meisten von Ihnen, Vienna Economic Forum durch die Jahre begleiten, kooperieren, unterstützen und Vertrauen an unsere Arbeit zeigen. Herzlichen Dank, dass wir heute hier das 20. Jubiläum vom Vienna Economic Forum organisieren und durchführen dürfen. Das herzliche Dankeschön geht an die Stadt Wien und Ihnen, Herr CZERNOHORSZKY, und ich bitte Sie auch an dieser Stelle, dass Sie unser herzliches Dankeschön dem dem Bürgermeister, Herr Dr. Ludwig, weiter überleiten, dass wir hier in diesem prachtvollen Saal sein dürfen. Frau Bundesministerin, danke. Frau Bundesministerin, Ihnen gehört ein spezielles Dankeschön, dass Sie die Bundesregierung hier heute vertreten. Vienna Economic Forum hat diese lange Geschichte, relativ lang, auch der aktiven Zusammenarbeit mit der Bundesregierung von Österreich zu verdanken. Und wie gesagt, ich erwarte der Altbundeskanzler Dr. Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL, weil zu seiner Zeit haben wir das Vienna Economic Forum gegründet. Ich habe hier ein Zitat von ihm, von Dr. SCHÜSSEL, rausgenommen und das ist, ich habe mit auch etwas eine Realität mitgenommen, das ist unsere erste Broschüre, damals war es noch immer Format A4. Erste Broschüre von Vienna Economic Forum vom Jahr 2004. Und von dieser Broschüre habe ich ein Zitat von dem Dr. SCHÜSSEL von damals, das ist eine lange Rede damals, ich habe nur ein Zitat rausgenommen. Und dieses Zitat ist, ich zitiere, von der Adria bis zum Schwarzen Meer. Das liest sich fast wie ein Werbeprospekt für einen Traumurlaub, ist aber zugleich eine Ortsangabe für eine der dynamischsten und spannendsten Regionen, deren Bedeutung und Potenzial dieses Vienna Economic Forum ausloten will. Und das ist etwas Besonderes. Dieses Vienna Economic Forum hat ganz bewusst einen regionalen Ansatz.
And that is something really special. The Vienna Economic Forum has decided to take a regional approach to connect the countries between the Adriatic coast all the way and the Black Sea, and this is a regional thought that is a very familiar one here in Vienna. I would like to thank all the governments who have enabled us to carry out our work in this area defined as between the Adriatic coast and the Black Sea, and the trust of the government and political circles in Vienna, the support of every Austrian government since then to continue expanding Vienna's role as a meeting point, and that is something that has supported us very much. Cordial welcome, Chancellor SCHÜSSEL. I quoted you during your absence because you said that the Vienna Economic Forum, I quote a text from 2004, maybe you don't remember it. And now that you have arrived, I would like to thank you for your trust in 2004, a trust that really gave us impetus in order to develop this region to a state where we can currently celebrate the 20th Jubilee meeting of the Vienna Economic Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vienna Economic Forum in its outset was almost homogeneously Austrian, but today we have an active collaboration with 11 member countries from many representatives of many European countries and around the world, supervisory boards from leading companies from Austria and other countries, are represented here. And looking at the first row here, here are the vice presidents of the Vienna Economic Forum from Austria, Bulgaria, international organizations, members from the supervisory board from Turkey, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, of course. I would like to thank all of you, not just the supervisory board members, but all our members from all the different countries. From France, where are you, Emmanuel? You've come from France, from many countries around the world. We have representatives here, and our special thank you goes to our President Ambassador, Viktor JACKOVICH, who has come from the United States of America. And this is how the Vienna Economic Forum continues developing and evolving, and I have to thank all of you for the excellent collaboration. The Vienna Economic Forum is an economic organization designed for building bridges out of a profound conviction that the economy is the engine, and that is how we were able to build bridges over the years, to define our own possibilities and opportunities and contribute to their implementation. And Austria has been investor number one during many of these years. Building bridges, that is a very good and favorable purpose which we will continue to be true to over the next decades. I spoke about the future decades, but this is our vision, even if it may sound optimistic. Together with the Marmara Foundation, our long-standing cooperation partner, and the Office of Turkey, this is our longest-standing partner, and we are ready to expand and make more profound our collaboration in the future. At this point, I would like to turn to our Honorary President, Dr. Günther RABENSTEINER. Dear Günther, the scepter of the world president has been passed on to you from the hands of our late honorary president Erhard Buzek, and that was no easy task at all. I would like to thank you very much for all of your hard work, and would like to ask you for your words, to give your words. Sorry, I'm going to quote your very concise but words that are very much to the point. You said, "It is easy to burn political bridges, but it is not so easy to create strong economic ties." And it is in this spirit that I hope that the Vienna Economic Forum will continue to evolve, continue to build bridges as an international economic organization. Dear Minister, I wish all of us a very fruitful day, a lot of success, and I would now like to ask Mr. CZERNOHORSZKY to take the floor. Thank you very much. A very good morning and a very cordial welcome to the Town Hall of Vienna. There were many possibilities in the room of getting my voice to you through the amplifiers. I've decided yes, and former Chancellor SCHÜSSEL, Prime Minister Kurti, Excellencies, it is my great honor and joy to welcome you here on behalf of the Mayor of Vienna, the Grand Hall of the Town Hall. This is the largest hall That is something you can measure, but it is also the most beautiful hall in Vienna and in Austria, I believe. So I think it is a very dignified and suitable venue for the Vienna Economic Forum, because the Vienna Economic Forum has a central role to play for Vienna and the country and all the organizations you represent here. It is a symbol for what Vienna can do, what Austria can do. Vienna is at the heart of Europe. It is a bridge builder, and in particular the title of this 20th Jubilee meeting couldn't be more fitting in a time of multiple crises. And there is nothing more important, and I think this can't be emphasized enough, there can't be anything more important than creating and sustaining strong collaborations, diplomatic, but of course also economic collaborations, because it is this collaboration, this stability of a connection that enables us to overcome these multiple crises, to build on this stability in future, to create prosperity in our countries. And it is this collaboration that will make sure in future that new ideas, new technologies, new possibilities will be created in order to create future prosperity, both in terms of the economy and of climate protection, adapting our cities to climate change, to a changed climate, in order to make all of that possible, to create educational institutions and collaboration, to create partnerships. And it is the city of Vienna that has always promoted such partnerships, understood such partnerships as something that we would very naturally pursue at the heart of Europe, for countries to learn from each other, support each other. And it is in this spirit that this event is another opportunity of living this long-standing tradition. And this is another conference giving us the opportunity of learning from each other, to promote our connections and build new bridges. Thank you very much, and my very best wishes. Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask the Minister to take the floor and ask Dr. SCHÜSSEL to come up to the panel.
Sehr geehrte Frau Generalsekretärin,
Secretary General,
Kanzler außer Dienst, geschätzter Herr Stadtrat,
former
Premierminister,
Chancellor, City Councillor, Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very cordial welcome to Vienna, the capital of the Republic of Austria, a heart at the center of Europe. I would like to start by congratulating you most cordially to the 20th Jubilee of the Vienna Economic Forum. I believe that the motto you've chosen, continuing to build economic bridges during difficult times, could not have been chosen better. It couldn't be more topical, because we are surrounded by a number of points of crisis. It's been a little over a month that we have witnessed the barbaric attack, terrorist attack in Israel, and we are at the very center of it, because here too in our streets we see demonstrations, and misinformation and disinformation are very much taking place today. And we mustn't forget that the war in Ukraine continues to go on, that every day people are losing their lives, the civilian population suffers from it. I very well remember my visit to Kiev in November last year, seeing how the civilian population suffers, and we mustn't lose sight of that area of crisis. either. And the Secretary General has already mentioned that this is why it is so important to build bridges, not burn them. Building them is very difficult, and that is why my thoughts in these days are with the civilian population, no matter where. The civilian population suffers on both sides if we think of Israel, and the Palestinian population suffers just as much. And it is therefore that it is our duty to contribute whatever we can to help bring about peace, or at least a pause as it is being attempted to achieve on the European level. You, ladies and gentlemen, have come together in order to discuss the economic background and consider how in future we can look out for each other in a better way and start reconstruction. I've already mentioned that I was in Kiev in November last year with an 8-person all-female delegation, and what it means that if the entire infrastructure has been bombed to pieces, there is no more electricity. This is something that you see when you're there. You see the buildings that remain dark. You start thinking, how will we get home if the infrastructure has been bombed to pieces? And that is why we have to start thinking about reconstruction now already, set the necessary steps, think in strategic terms how this situation will be able to be solved. And there is another situation we mustn't forget either, and this is why we address the Prime Minister here. That's the situation on the Western Balkans. This is about the expansion of the European Union. We have to think about the enlargement in order to guarantee the credibility of the European Union, to ensure that people know that we want to have them there. The European Union has not been completed without the countries on the West Balkan. It is a long way still, but it is also our responsibility to give these countries hope. And this is why Foreign Minister Schallenberg and myself have begun working towards a gradual integration a year ago, and I'm glad to see that the European Commission has picked up these efforts and continues them to support our movements, give them strength, and help these countries with their partly very painful reform processes that are also a question of safety for the European Union. And we mustn't forget that we too, as a European Union, have to do our homework. From an institutional point of view, we also have to discuss political areas that will be such that a 33-member European Union will be able to deal with. A forum like the Vienna Economic Forum is exactly the right place for discussing all of these things. It's not just the personalities from the area of politics who are here, there are also financial institutions, the private sector. It also takes a long-term vision, and I am glad that this is something that you're discussing here again this year. And in closing, I'd like to say that Austria is a reliable partner in the European Union. Austria is a loud and strong voice in favor of the enlargement, especially towards the Western Balkans, and Austria will remain the party that gives an impulse to achieve that, and will continue to do so in spite of all the crises. Let's remain positive, let's remain optimistic in looking to the future and see what crisis we've already overcome. Let us not lose heart, because the European Union is doubtlessly a successful project. And since the Russian attack of the Ukraine, I think we are very much aware of that. The European Union will also not be measured on the history, but its ability to find solutions for the issues of the present and answers to the questions of the future. And I hope that this spirit, this positive spirit, will be part and parcel of what the Vienna Economic Forum will be doing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, for your inspiring words. And let me assure you, on behalf of the Vienna Economic Forum, we'll continue doing that so that Austria can remain being the attractive place it has been for discussing peace and positive visions for the future. Thank you very much. And now I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL. May I ask you to take the floor?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Minister President Kurti, dear Ambassador KIRTCHEVA, and dear members of the presidency, city councillor. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization, and I have to apologize right away because it was the highly efficient management of the city of Vienna, getting rid of our waste, that unfortunately kept me a little longer in the streets than I expected. Coming back to the topic itself, when we founded the forum in 2004, we lived in totally different times. It was a time of optimism. We hoped it was not the end of history, but it was not the last, but the first generation at that of a fascinating, peaceful order, a holistic order, an economic area of Lisbon to Vladivostok, a fascinating idea is that 2004, by the way, was the year when we welcomed 10 new member countries, and I, in my function as the head of the EU, as the foreign minister and the committee president and the president of the commission, it was a huge challenge for me, a fascinating positive vision. However, things turned out differently. They turned out to be much more difficult. And maybe we were a little naive and blue-eyed. Just to recall something I tended to forget almost myself, about 30 years ago, it was in this famous forest in the Belowesche marshmallow, about 9 kilometers away from the Polish borders, where in a dacha the president, Mr. Yeltsin, Mr. Kuchma, and the head of the Ministerial Council, JACKOVICH, met there, sealing the end of the former Soviet Union. It was on the 8th of December 1991. On the 21st, another 7 countries joined the group, sealing the end of the Soviet Union, and then they founded the Community of Independent States. Gorbachev stepped back on the 25th, and on the 26th of December, the Soviet Union was a thing of the past. But the Russian Duma immediately afterwards took a decision to call back the Crimea region. Yeltsin did not want to risk cooperating with Ukraine, but very soon afterwards, first attempts were made. In 1994, a decision was made of activist separatists of a so-called free and independent Republic of Crimea, and the decision was made. It was again eliminated by the Ukrainian Ukrada. 94, the next attempt. 92 was the first attempt. 94, the second attempt was made. And Yeltsin solemnly declared 97 Yeltsin and Kuchma an agreement on eternal friendship, cooperation and partnership. They concluded in 2010. Another time it was the president, Mr. Medvedev, the president succeeding Mr. Putin and Yanukovych in the Kharkiv agreement, extended Sevastopol's term and the question of the borders. We know where it led us to. It's interesting to recall all of these instances because it's quite a long story and we actually were naive. And certainly we now lost our naivety. It was a wake-up call for all of us that made sure we were awake immediately. And for that part of Europe that is more sensitive and more critical when it comes to the ambitions of getting to power in in Russia comes to mind. Milan Kundera wrote a book in times of communism. He wrote a couple of essays saying the tragedy in Central Europe, the loss of the West or something like that, containing two essays, one focusing on the importance of smaller states that have to do each and every step to not lose the identity in a bigger context. Also within the European Union, by the way, we should not all be immersed in one big mess, but it is the individual wealth of a smaller state as well that has to be held up high. And second, the sensitive defense against all attempts to put one empire on top of everything with a top-down approach. In 1948, the famous Czech author Palatsky sent a letter to the Frankfurt Assembly warning of a major Russian ambitious attack to put everything beyond their sovereignty. It's an attempt, as he put it, to have a minimum diversity attained on a maximum level. The counter concept is the idea of Central Europe that today would have to be enlarged by Southeast and East Europe. And the counter concept is a maximum diversity on minimal space, which actually is the scheme that we in the beginning tried to implement. It means paving the way for European integration, some open agenda to be put up, making sure that economic integration, economic openness and exchange also has something to do with a state with democratic development. I do hope that democracy and market economy go hand in hand, that entrepreneurial liberty and civilian liberty have to go hand in hand. That's a holistic agenda. And Karoline Stadler already pointed out in her speech that Austria, because we are somewhere in the middle of the continent, we don't really know where the central point here is, but we do believe that it's somewhere in our Central European area. And we here see a certain historical, cultural, political and economic responsibility to bear. And I do believe that the next 20 years to come, and Madam KIRTCHEVA already pointed it out, saying that for this region, for Central Europe, Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, we will see the most fascinating and most challenging time ahead, because the major developments are going to take place here, the future enlargements of the EU, fighting for structures and the status of the European Union, starting with the financial design, who will be net payers, who will be net recipients, what will the extent be, the military question, safety and security, buzzword Ukrainian war, and reconstructing Ukraine, and democracy, and our state. This is what we will see decisively in this state. And I think the Vienna Economic Forum in this context plays a predominant role What's interesting to see is that Alexander von Humboldt, for instance, some 250 years ago, already had some pre-demanners already seeing what was going to happen. It's a big book with maps and different materials saying there are certain interesting global regions. And he said this area, and he compared it to the enlarged region of the Danube, is going to be one of the most fascinating regions in the next 100 years. And that's where we are right now. We live in these times. We don't want to renounce of any part of our identity and our positive wishes for the future. Not necessarily should we be optimists or pessimists, but we should be possibilists. We should make sure that we have a positive future enabled, paved for everyone. Thank you very much. We are saying goodbye to our Madam Minister. Thank you very much for having attended our meeting and for having given us a speech here today. Thank you. And I may now ask the Honorary President, Mr. RABENSTEINER, to take the floor, please. Dear Madam Minister, a few words of farewell, and former Mr. Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday and today we already talked a lot about the last 20 successful years of the Vienna Economic Forum. We thank you so much for that, whether it's people, institutions or companies that sponsored the idea, creating a great many benefits. But I think the time has come to take the occasion of the Vienna Economic Forum convening to reflect on the future, to take a first step into the future. Buzzwords were dropped by previous speakers already. We live in times that obviously want to dissolve our democracies. We do see these phenomena globally. But that should not allure us in the more peaceful regions to belittle these topics. Quite on the contrary, because these topics have a great impact on our living together in a democracy and on the development of our economic system. Something that started 20 years ago under the initiative of the Vienna Economic Forum, pursuing the idea of supporting the infrastructure in these countries, creating networks, be it roads and streets, energy, telecommunication networks, a banking system, an insurance system. And we see that things have kept developing like many thinkers thought it would look like. It's education, our health system in an exploding digital environmental setting. That means challenges politics has to get to grips with, having an effect also on our economy. The political representatives I'd like to welcome as partners and telling them politics can't solve each and everything for economy, but they can produce the platforms that are necessary, create the framework like the Vienna Economic Forum does. Platforms, institutions where the bridge building function can be seen to more quickly. Health and education will support this issue because of the exchange of employees in companies that work on an international level. On health topics and pandemic, I won't speak too much. So it's a clear appeal, a plea today I'd like to share with you, a plea to work for the future. We can do that in our plenary sessions as well as in many bi- and multilateral talks. And it's on that note that I wish you and all of us a successful and fruitful meeting. And please don't lose sight of the fact that we need a final communiqué at the end of today to say what and how we are going to do it in the future. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much, Mr. Rabensteiner, dear Günther. Thank you.
I would like to ask the President of the Vienna Economic Forum, Ambassador JACKOVICH, who will tell all of us a small secret.
Guten Tag, grüß Gott.
Hello and good morning.
I want to thank all of you in the name of the Vienna Economic Forum for coming here this morning and also participating in what should be a very interesting conference. Mr. Chancellor SCHÜSSEL, Prime Minister Kurti, Prime Minister Donev, and Vice Prime Minister Jelešaj from Montenegro. Thank you all for being here. The Vienna Economic Forum is very proud to say, among other things, that we have achieved the status of an international non-governmental organization. Officially, that status here with a headquarters in Vienna, Austria. You heard earlier about Austria as being the heart, or Vienna being the heart of Austria. It is also the heart of Europe, and for a long time, historically, has been exactly that. We are also proud of the fact that we are, the Vienna Economic Forum, has the status of a advisory group to the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and is also registered with the Transparency Registry of the European Parliament and of the European Commission. It has a rather original structure because we have an ambassadors commission, an ambassadors committee, which is formed of the ambassadors of the 13 states that comprise the family of the Vienna Economic Forum. This is from the Adriatic to the Black Sea, basically the Balkans, former Yugoslavia, and Turkey and Ukraine. And we also have the Committee of the Prime Ministers, who act as the patrons of the Vienna Economic Forum. The whole idea started, as you know, 20 years ago with the late, and I may say the late and very important, Vice Chancellor of Austria, Erhard Busek, together with our General Secretary, Ambassador Elena KIRTCHEVA. And the founding documentation was actually signed by the former Chancellor, Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL. He was the one who actually signed the beginning documentation for the organization. So what exactly is the Vienna Economic Forum today? You have already heard what it's all about, but let me just say very briefly that it is a platform for people coming together from various walks of life, businessmen, government officials, NGO activists, people who represent regional organizations, international organizations, to come together and find some commonality, some common themes, and some common projects that they can work on. And in this particular period of time, when we are facing tremendous conflicts, regional, international, outright warfare, the challenges for the entire world, but especially I think of Europe, of climate change, migration, economic dislocation, inflation, all of these issues, then now more than ever, we probably need organizations like the Vienna Economic Forum. Maybe we need even more of them. It certainly is true that this area from the Adriatic to the Black Sea urgently needs to be integrated, urgently needs to become a part of the Euro-Atlantic and the European mainstream. But it is equally true that Europe needs this part of the world. As we have heard from Herr SCHÜSSEL, this is an area with tremendous potential. It is an area that belongs in Europe, not just historically, but today and in the future. Thank you very much. I would like to ask the people on the podium to please come over to the side here. Wir haben organisiert einen kleinen Festakt.
We have organized a festive act for you, and I'd kindly ask you to remain seated, and I'm giving away the secret now. We want to make sure that our founding father, Dr. Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL, be honored by all of us. We're going to the press wall, and I'm asking our facilitator, Daniela Philipp, to take over. I'm going to hand her the microphone, and we're going to just rearrange the stage for a minute. It's going to take only a very little while. Thank you. Let me take the occasion of the 20th anniversary here to look into the past and seize the opportunity while Madam Ambassador goes to the photo wall. A big thank you to you. It's incredible, your energy, your enthusiasm. You not only founded the Vienna Economic Forum, but you've been accompanying it all through these 20 years in such a fantastic way. This really needs a big, big hand. Thank you very, very much, dear Mrs. Philipp. But let me read out our paper. Distinguished Mr. Minister, recognizing the Vienna Economic Forum, your great support and contribution to the foundation of the VEF in 2004. Thank you so much for that. It was your endless devotion and efforts that you, Mr. Federal Chancellor, you coined the history, and you had a big impact on promoting cooperation in the Vienna Economic Forum region. This is our certificate for you. Thank you very much for taking it into your hands now. This is our special award to you, Mr. SCHÜSSEL. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. You can see we are building bridges also here in this big hall, in our Festive Hall here in our town hall. Before focusing on the hot issues of financial and economic stability in our next panel discussion, I may already welcome the participants in the next panel. It will be the Federal Minister for Finances who is going to take the floor first here, Dr. Magnus Brunner. Great to see you opening this panel. Thank you very much, and we agreed I'm going to continue in English because the panel can then also discuss in English.
Distinguished guests, first of all, happy 20th anniversary from my side and from the Austrian government side. I know you've heard that before, probably from Karoline EDTSTADLER this morning, so congratulations for this very special occasion today. And if one looks back for the 2 decades we experienced today when the first Vienna Economic Forum took place and compares it to today, there are, of course, a lot of clear differences, not only in Austria, but in the whole world and in the whole of Europe in general. And as we heard just before, Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL was Chancellor at that time, and he had his really honest aim to strengthen the ties between the eastern and the western European parts. And Not only that, he implemented some other reforms as well, like the pension reform, for instance, which we discuss at the moment to have a new one maybe. If I may, I will call you in the next days. Maybe you have got some really good hints and tips for me on that side. So at that time, 20 years ago, of course, the ties between Eastern and Western Europe and the links were quite weak, I would say. And Austria has, with Chancellor SCHÜSSEL at that time and others, contributed intensively to the European integration of this region. And it has also established itself, I would say, as a sort of door opener on the one hand, and also a gateway between Western and Eastern Europe. And Austria, I think, has become an ever more important place to work on the one hand for people from the region. 20 years ago, I would say around 100,000 persons of the region were working in Austria or employed in Austria, and this number has more than tripled in the last year to over 350,000 people today. Foreign trade, if we look at foreign trade, for instance, with all 12 countries, accounts for almost 6% of the Austrians' total imports and nearly 7.5% of total exports. So a lot of links in that side, and we see that this road also of cooperation and integration is very beneficial for both sides, and will lead also, I would say, to a stronger Europe altogether. So let me, if I may, also say some words on the situation in general at the moment, the economic situation, geopolitical, which is quite something if Wolfgang SCHÜSSEL is here, but the economic and financial situation, which is of course under pressure at the moment, I would say. I think one can say without a doubt that the last couple of years or 3 years were amongst the most challenging. I mean, we had most challenging times all over the last 20 years, but the last 3 years, of course, were quite challenging economically on the one hand, so for the society altogether on the other hand, and probably one of the most challenging time in our recent history. And what comes more is that these events have, and talking about on the geopolitical side, I think these events have also triggered and strengthened structural shifts and structural developments within Europe, which take place in the whole world and in Europe especially. So there are three observations I would like to share with you, if I may. First, on the geopolitical and on the trade side, in the light of the war, the development which has actually already started several years before the war, disruptions in globalization, fragmented multilateralism and other topics, and I think that will deepen in the decades to come. And this is a danger. This is a real danger, I would say, for Europe, as our model, our European model, is actually built on free trade and also on international competitiveness. And I strongly believe that free trade and also increasing global cooperation has, of course, contributed to increase global prosperity altogether, in particular in Eastern Europe, of course. And we need, in my opinion, to go back to intensify this international trade, but at the same time, of course, also increase our resilience in key sectors. That's the first thing. The second observation has to do with the role of the government sector and also of public expectations, I would say. In the light of these crises we experienced, of these multiple crises we experienced, we had, as a government, of course, to support households and businesses. This was necessary, in my point of view, not only from an economic side and economic point of view, but also in order to secure a sort of social stability and social peace altogether. But the other side of the medal is, of course, increased expectations in the public, what the government should provide and how it should support. And many people at least that was my feeling, complained that public support is not enough. And sometimes one gets the feeling that we should provide support for every eventuality which could happen in life altogether. In the long run, the government, of course, cannot solve all the problems, but it can set the right incentives on the other hand, and small pushes also to enable people solving their problems on their own. And I think that's an attitude we should keep in mind. Europe will definitely get a problem with competitiveness if we only discuss about how to distribute public money and work less hours, which we have the discussions going on at the moment in Austria, but do not raise the question, on the other hand, on how to create public money. Work, innovation, economic growth, these are the questions I think we have to pose. And I see that economic dynamism is much stronger in the Eastern Europe than in West Europe. And therefore I truly believe that a strong Eastern Europe will be actually a driving force, I would say, of economic development in Europe as a whole. And a third observation, and finally, I want to say a few words on the green transition and on energy security in general. I think, and we all know that, of course, that the Russian invasion and the entailing weaponization, on the other hand, of energy has shown this vulnerability of Europe when it comes to energy dependence. And the question of energy, in my point of view, can be quite fundamental for European competitiveness, particularly if one compares it to the US, for instance, or the Asian part of the world. And therefore, I think we need to increase our resilience of energy on the one hand, but also diversify our energy sources. And in addition, we must also increase our investments in the renewable energy part, of course. That's what we try to do as a government, and other sustainable solutions as well. But we must not forget investments in the grids, for instance, in trans-European grids. And therefore, I think close cooperation in this area is very key. And we also need to use private capital, for instance. We have to make it more attractive for private capital also to be invested in that part in order to use these finance investments altogether. And I think we must focus on innovation. I don't think we can become climate neutral with today's technologies in 2 or 3 decades. I think that's a dream in a way. And innovation, in my opinion, is the key element to our success in that part. And as another part, I think we must foster cooperation altogether. Energy policy is an international challenge. And currently we stand, I think, at a juncture in a way where resilience on the one hand, innovation on the other hand, but also cooperation must actually be our guiding principles in order to come out of this crisis as a Europe stronger than before. And Austria, in my view, has, because of its history and because of its geographical role, quite a unique responsibility for Central and Eastern Europe. And I will always be, and Europe and Austria is always a strong voice, I think, for those countries. And that does not mean that one needs to agree maybe in all different items, but that we have to speak to each other and strengthen the dialogue to find common solutions at the end. And then the spirit of this collaboration that has also actually defined this forum for several years, I think we should engage deeper in an open dialogue on the one hand, exchanging ideas, that's what we all do today also, and also to force partnerships altogether that will enable us to overcome these quite interesting challenges we face today. So thank you very much for all your engagement, for all the initiatives you do. Thanks to Chancellor SCHÜSSEL, of course, for his engagement at that time, 20 years ago, and later. And yeah, happy anniversary again. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank. Dankeschön, Herr Minister. And thank you
very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
In this spirit of cooperation that you suggested, that we will continue our discussion. In the next statement, we will learn more about the role of the European Investment Bank in fostering EU economy and the financial stability. And therefore, I am pleased to open the floor for the Vice President of the EIB in Luxembourg, Mr. Kyriacos KAKOURIS.
Good morning, Councillor SCHÜSSEL. I have to say that it's an honor for me to be here. And taking from the last speaker, I have to say that 20 years ago, or even before 20 years ago, as a Cypriot, I attended few similar forums here, and I remember that how they opened doors and how it helped. I mean, how it helped people from our countries, the accession of the 10 countries at that time in 2004. So happy anniversary for the forum, and I do see that how the value added that this forum can create for the region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to be with you today and share European Investment Bank's views on the way forward for the economic resilience of the Western Balkans. As a bank of the European Union with over 4 decades long support, we remain a reliable ally for the region's development, and today we're with you here on the accession path to the EU family. Amidst numerous and global challenges, our commitment remains solid, and now when climate security and energy threats are looming over our lives and economies, we are intensifying our efforts to hand on our support. We expect more challenges that need to be tackled as the effects of cumulative crisis and are compounding. Quoting IMF, the global economy is limping along, not sprinting. The world economy faces the risk of a prolonged period of subdued growth due to scarring of the crisis, the ever-worsening impact of climate change, and the structural economic challenges. Meanwhile, the global monetary tightening round has worsened fiscal and debt vulnerabilities, especially in developing countries. In the context of slowing global economic activity, growth in the Western Balkans also decelerated over the course of the year 2022 and in 2023, although with different effects across individual countries. While trade in goods impacted negatively industrial production, some countries in the region benefited from the strong rebound in the service sector, in particular tourism and accommodation. On the demand side, private consumption remained in general an important growth driver despite still elevated price pressures. To fully leverage the opportunities from trade with the EU and the associated transfer of technologies and know-how, Western Balkan countries should accelerate structural reforms, upskilling, and modernization of the education system, while strengthening institutions to build the foundations for economic resiliency and sustainable development. Increased technical and financial support from the EU, such as the new growth plan, will contribute to catalyze private investment and accelerate the convergence process to higher income levels. All Western Balkans continue to benefit from the nominal revenue growth, which helped cushion government budgets from the energy shock. But spending pressures are emerging to protect household purchasing power and to finance ambitious investment plans. The energy crisis has highlighted the need to accelerate the green transition, the importance to diversify energy sources, expand the use of renewables and energy efficiency across Europe, including the Western Balkans. In this regard, through EIB Global, we are actively working across the region on the deployment of clean energy, particularly wind and solar, as well as the modernization of existing infrastructure and development of energy efficiency projects. Along our traditional support to sustainable transport and environmental projects, we see these sectors as key area for the EIB contribution as the EU Climate Bank and as a major financier to the REPowerEU plan to support Europe's ambition towards energy security and decarbonization. Last year alone, the EIB Group financed a record of 19 billion euros of energy investment inside the EU and beyond to accelerate the energy transition. However, a departure from fossil fuels comes with a social economic cost. Through the Just Transition mechanism designed to deliver on climate objectives while enabling positive socio-economic outcomes, the EIB Group seeks to ensure that the transition is just and that no one is left behind. And certainly, these efforts apply to the Western Balkans, which are part of the European Commission's initiative for coal regions in transition. The region will also benefit from the new growth plan announced by the European Commission, demonstrating ongoing EU solidarity and commitment to the enlargement processes. On top of this, under EIB Global, we are also committed to support Commission's 300 billion euros worth of Global Getaway Initiative aiming to address infrastructural needs and help realize UN's sustainable goals. Since 2009, to deal with the long-lasting consequences of the global financial crisis, we have mobilized over 11 billion euros for the region. In 2023 alone, 750 million euros have already been made available to foster the region's convergence with the EU in key sectors: energy security, urban development, SME financing, education, transport, and water sectors. In the presence of Mr. Bowman, I'm happy to acknowledge that many of the projects are supported with the Team Europe approach in partnership with the European Commission, EBRD, and other IFIs. At the EIB, we recognize the need to help the Western Balkans turn weaknesses into prospects and opportunities, and the urgency to act now with right policies, partnerships, and strategic investments. Our comprehensive mix of lending, blending, and advisory services is reinforced with new EIB experts on the ground. More recently, under Jasper's program, we have tripled our advisory services for the region and made our experts available for the preparation of new sustainable strategies and projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. KAKOURIS. Thank you. And you were so friendly, you have built already the bridge to the next impulse speaker before we continue then in the circle. We now eagerly expect to know how the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is responding to the challenges around economical and financial stability. And therefore, I invite Mr. Mark Bowman, UK Vice President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Mr. Bowman, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Federal Minister, Your Excellencies, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here at the Vienna Economic Forum and to be part of this very important conversation. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about the role of MDBs and in particular how the EBRD is responding to the current challenges. As we've so clearly heard already this morning, we know that we are living in a very complex world with multifaceted challenges both in Europe, in the neighbourhood and globally, a backdrop of an increasingly fragmented geopolitical landscape and real global challenges from the climate emergency, food security, the energy crisis and humanitarian challenges such as migration. And of course, we know that these issues have trans-border implications, and of course, we understand that no single actor can deal with these issues. We need closer cooperation and collective action. And the theme of this conference is on building bridges. I will argue that in today's world, we need more bridges. In a multipolar world, we need more multilateralism, and again, I will argue that the MDBs are effective instruments for multilateral cooperation. The MDBs and the IFIs were set up to deal with crises. The Bretton Woods institutions formed after the end of the Second World War. My own institution, the EBRD, formed in the 1990s to deal with the collapse of the Soviet Union. We over these years, I believe that despite the challenges in the world and the fact that the world has become a more complex place, I think we have proved to be effective instruments for cooperation, effective instruments to leverage relatively small amounts of shareholder capital to develop investments and to support economic development and economic integration. Of course, we can't be complacent. We need to continually improve, to adapt and evolve. And the roadmap ahead calls for MDBs to be better, bigger and bolder. This means ensuring that we are efficient, ensuring that we use our balance sheets as effectively as possible, that we channel even more resources to achieve transformational change, that we work with the recipient countries, that we devote a larger share of our activities to country-led and country-owned platforms, and also that we work even more closely with our fellow MDBs, cooperating together, co-investing, aligning our standards and procedures in order to increase our impact. Another critical challenge for us, an area where we need to do even more, is mobilizing and capitalizing private sector investment, developing bankable projects, and this requires us to provide upstream engagement to build attractive regulatory and economic environments, developing a credible pipeline of bankable projects, and providing the early financing in order to catalyze the private sector. In terms of the EBRD and how we are responding to the current challenges, we are a transition bank committed to sound banking principles. We invest primarily in the private sector. 75% of our investments last year went to the private sector. And with our investments, we also work with our clients at a company level, at a client level, to develop green transition plans, improve corporate governance, tackle gender and inclusion gaps, and support them in their digitalization efforts. We're also a green bank. Climate change is obviously a very key priority for us, and we've committed that at least 50% of our annual investments will be green investments. Since the beginning of this year, all of our investments have been aligned with the goals, the mitigation and adaptation goals of the Paris Agreement. To ensure system-wide transition, a key feature of our model is that we complement our investments with policy dialogue and technical assistance to achieve change on the ground. So, for example, we will work with a country in terms of the field of renewable energy. We will not just invest in renewable energy projects, but we will work with governments and authorities to improve the regulatory of our environment in order to attract private investment. Of course, over the last 2 years, Ukraine has been a key priority for the EBRD. The EBRD has had a long-term relationship with Ukraine going back to the 1990s. But over the course of the last 2 years, in 2022 and 2023, we have invested over 3 billion euros in Ukraine, playing what we believe is a critical role helping to support the real economy, helping to keep trade functioning, and quite literally with our support to the electricity company Ukrenergo, helping to keep the lights on. We've done this by taking a significant amount of additional risk on our own balance sheet, but also with the strong support of donors and shareholders. And we are currently engaged in a conversation with our shareholders around a capital increase, which would allow us to continue to support Ukraine both through the war and into reconstruction, and also to support other countries of operation. To conclude, just to return to the importance of collaboration and coordination, the need to break down silos, to work in partnerships with governments, private sector, civil society. As I said earlier, in today's world, we need more bridges, we need more multilateralism, and at the EBRD, we look forward to continuing to be part of those efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So while you have a seat, I do the same, and I'm honored to have a place here in this round of experts. Resilience seems to be a key word as well as cooperation. Let's see this, I know it's not really a circle, but let's take it as a symbol of a circle that while sitting together and getting in dialogue together, you will find responses and you will tell us what could be responsibilities in order to answer the really challenging questions of nowadays. And I would like to invite each of you to share your perspective, and in the first round probably a little bit more about challenges, and then we dive a little bit deeper into looking toward the future and to responses and responsibilities. I know that some of you have prepared also PowerPoint slides to illustrate your first perspective, so make sure that the remote control, one is here and one is here, as well as the microphones. And I count on your support in regards to timing, and you can count on the support of the little counter that we can see here in the monitor for the first round. So I would like to open the perspective round with you, Magister Peter Höfinger, Vice President of the Economic Forum and Deputy General Manager and Deputy Chairman of the Managing Board of the Vienna Insurance Group. Where do you see the main challenges?
Thank you for having the opportunity sitting here and sharing my ideas. I'm very much looking to opportunities. Challenges which we have in Central Eastern Europe in the end is shared worldwide, but very much with the Western time. We are going in a more and more unpredictable, volatile world. And if you look, and this is what I have learned over the last 20, 25 years, and I am traveling the last 20, 25 years, 3 days a week in average in Central Eastern Europe. So in the end, I feel a Central Eastern European with roots in Austria. The big advantage which our region has is resilience of society and citizen. Imagine what in our region the last 30 years has happened on the political side, on the economic side, currency crisis, all these kind of topics, and now compare the society, the citizen in Germany and France, just to be very placative. The French people go on the street, burn houses because the pension age should be increased to 62 years. There is not a resilience of these societies, having not learned over the last decades, having the luck and the very positive thing of an accountable future, full responsibility on very strong social security systems. Look to our region. I think our region, having in mind the last 30, 35 years, our region is well prepared to a volatile world which is unpredictable. They do not get totally irritated by it. They are not immediately always asking that the state will have to support for whatever issue which are there from external factors. In our own business model, we saw the topic of inflation. Inflation is one of the biggest issues for the insurance industry. And when discussing with the reinsurance industry to...
Sorry to interrupt you. It seems that the microphone doesn't really work well. Let's try the other one.
Hello? Better?
Is it better? The technique says it's better. So, it's worth a try, huh?
Yeah, and we had to explain to Munich Re's, Swiss Re's, all the large global reinsurance companies how we will deal with inflation. And one of the main arguments which we had is, look friends, in our management structure in Central Eastern Europe, we do have active managers which had in their professional career already the topic of inflation. We can deal with it. Very different to Germany, France, where this kind of jumping inflation was not here the last 40, 50 years. Therefore, no more resources in dealing with these topics. Looking forward, I'm a bit afraid, specifically as a father of 4 kids, we are going to an even more volatile world in the future than it has been in the past. But I'm happy that we are exposed, that we are working in a region where obviously resilience, citizen, colleagues, societies to deal with it and not to immediately ask somebody else to help for all the different topics, but finding a solution is a big advantage which we will have. And this will support our region in the further economic development. Also, I would say, in some political environment, I think there will be big issues coming to Western democracy. The more volatile it will be, and the more citizens are open to maybe quite more populistic solutions, which are nice to hear, but maybe not easy to be implemented. I think we are here on the right place for a future with a multipolar world is creating new challenges to society and businesses, which makes me very positive and committed. I think another topic which I would also like to mention, and I'm also responsible in our group for large corporate customers, so mainly large industrial manufacturers. Since the COVID crisis, on the mindset of every chief financial officer is beside finding the best price and quality for the supply, it's also here the security that the supply is delivered in time. And they all had to learn with COVID, delays of supply out of China, Asia, but also sometimes South America. All this accelerated with the topic of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Now also seeing the topics of the Israeli crisis, which we have here. Additionally to creating their supply chain, there is now the security availability of the relevant spare parts. And when it comes to this topic, all the CFO says, well, minimum 15 to 30% of relevant supply must be somehow, let's call it, in a truck distance to be delivered. So that I'm not dependent on airplane, ash clouds 10 years ago, not dependent on some channels which are blocked, harbors which are blocked in China, which gives us in the region, again, a certain push, and I think we can see first signs of it, of an increased foreign direct investment, of whatever is still more labor intensive and can be not just compensated by robotics. So also this, I think, is an element where we have opportunities and where we will have to take them as businesses, but also with support of the local governments, giving an environment which makes it attractive for these international companies to come back to our region in an even larger scale.
Thank you. So my microphone is not working. That's why I got another one now. It's all about resilience, yeah? And resilience is not only to come back to the initial state. Sometimes when you go through different challenges, you can even have a growth, yeah, and come back better than before. That's what you mentioned at the end also. So let's enrich the picture with the insights of Turkey, with Mr. Bekir POLAT, Vice President of the Republic of Turkey Investment Office and representative of the member of the board of Vienna Economic Forum. From your perspective and sharing the insights also from Turkey, what would you like to add?
Thank you, Ms. Philipp. It's a privilege to address such distinguished audience, first of all. A couple of years back, not so far from now, right after the pandemic, when everything seems so fragile and volatile, and they still are, in every international investor meetings, we kept hearing how resilience or being resilient is crucial for decision makers. So I think being resilient is not a solo game. It's done, it's created, it's maintained through international cooperation, bilateral cooperation, and building bridges, just like Vienna Economic Forum is doing today. There are many challenges. As a country, we are facing some challenges as well. Challenges are increasing day by day. But putting that aside, well, recognizing the importance of stability, politically, economically, financially, we focus on a different agenda to sustain the growth of the country. At one hand, we are trying to support the supply chain reconstruction because we believe that Turkey is now a regional hub for international investors and for local companies as well. And we would like to sustain that international as much as the local Turkish companies move up the value chains and integrate this global supply chain restructuring, where everyone talks now about nearshoring, ally shoring, even friend shoring. Another one would be the entrepreneurship, local entrepreneurship that we focus on lately, because especially in the technology startups, this has become a significant investment driver for the last 10 years for the country. Just to provide some context, 10 years ago, early stage technology investments were just only double-digit million-dollar range. 5 years ago, it reached triple digits, and in the last 2 years, it surpassed $1 billion at early stage. So these startups is a major foreign direct investment driver, and we try as an institution to support the local ecosystem in every way. In summary, actually, supply chain reconstructing and technology entrepreneurship are the main drivers of the investment in the country at the moment.
Thank you so much. And if I hear you right, all of you, resilience is not about denying problems. It's more to really show vulnerability and nevertheless to hold on to cooperation. So cooperation seems really one of the key, and to hold on to entrepreneurship. Coming back to Austria, to another member of the board of Vienna Economic Forum, to Dr. Georg Bucher, member of the management board of Steiermärkische Bank und Sparkassen AG, we will find out which challenges he is underlining or adding. I heard that you will tell us in German language. In English? Okay, so you're free to choose, and you're free to choose then to have the translations or not.
Thank you very much. I'm very positive in the years I was very positive in the years 97 and 2000 when we started in this region, and unfortunately Mr. Stepic just left, and I would contribute to him the respect what Raiffeisen did, but I'm representing here Erste Group and Sparkassen, so both Austrian banking groups I think did a great job over the years in the region. Maybe we were a little bit naive, Mr. Schüssel used this word, and we were a little bit naive concerning the time frame and the time plan of an accession of those countries. They did a terrific job, and we heard the main economic key figures today, so I do not need to repeat them of the countries. During the years, household deficits were far lower than the European average. Unemployment, and this is the lucky situation at the moment, unemployment is still very low. In contrary, we suffer a little bit of shortage of people in the euro area, as we do it in our region as well. For me, the really positive is that overall the region has a resilient, and we used the word already quite a couple of times, a resilient and stable financial sector, which is an important pillar of the development. Our banking group, Ersten Sparkassen, we grew over the years since 2000 in average on a yearly basis between 18 and 20%, which is a really tremendous development. And in some of the countries, we heard today the topic of the green energy and investing in alternative, in wind parks and solar panel factories. I think in North Macedonia, we are even market leader. It's a small market, but we are in a market leader in this area. My concerns is, and we heard today, the staged accession. We hear last week's technical terms like confidence clause, like we are looking for alternatives to a full membership. And I think this is a dangerous way to go. I think for me there is no alternative for those countries. A lot of them have delivered, part of them have failed, they need support, but I think if we start talking about alternatives, there's a threat that the process will delay. The President of the Commission, she called it a call of history, that we see finally, suddenly the year 2030 as the goal to reach for membership. I think for the young generation, and I had a workshop on the university in Sarajevo 1.5 years ago. It was frustrating for me to hear during the break how the young people tell me where they are going in Europe. On every second student told me, go to Germany, to Netherlands, wherever. This is really frustrating. The young generation needs a kind of a concrete, if we find an alternative way, it has to be described in a very detailed manner. So the people have to look for something, and to see a possible future in their countries. And if young people in the amount of between 30,000 and Bosnia the year ago, 170,000 leave the country, well-trained people. I mean, let's look 10 years ahead. This is going to be really a disaster, and this is going to be a real wake-up call for the European Union, or should be a real wake-up call for the European Union. So we heard the sentence, the EU is not finished without those countries. Let's work much harder, and we from the finance industry, we will do our efforts to support those countries and in developing together with the international institutions here on my left side to develop a stable financial environment. And Peter said he has 4 children. I have 4 children as well. We are the same period of time in the region. I lost a little bit my heart for this region. I believe in this region, but we have to speed up, definitely. Thank you very much.
So speeding up and doing everything for the next generation, so that it's not the last generation as they claim it sometimes. Yeah, let's turn our gaze to Serbia and pass the metaphoric talking stick to Alexander Vlahovic, President of Serbian Association of Economists and member of the board of Vienna Economic Forum.
Thank you very much. I prepared some short presentation, which I will take not more than 5 minutes in this first round. So I wanted to give you some basic thoughts about Western Balkan economic outlook. So it's 6 countries, as you know, with 18 million inhabitants, sharing turbulent past and same goal to become a member of European Union. So when we talk about GDP per capita, you can see on this chart that the highest GDP per capita in Western Balkan is far below the poorest EU member state. If we convert it in purchase parity price, you can see that on average, 40% of GDP per capita, 40% of average of EU 27 is the level of GDP per capita in Western Balkan countries. So we did have a strong growth in 2021 after a COVID year, the huge rebound, and also growth in the Western Balkan economies started strong in early 2022. But from year end, it was moderating. Where is my presentation? Something happened. It was moderating from the...
So we can't see the presentation on the monitor right now.
Can we have a presentation on... Okay. So before moderating to our year end, but what is very much important, the impact of major shocks has been less severe than it was expected. In this year and year to come, we expect moderate growth, so you can see that in years to come, we shouldn't expect fast convergence with the European Union. Consumption was key growth driver in 2022, but in this year, it's slightly moderate toward to the account of investment, foreign direct investment, as well as capital expenditure. Fiscal deficit is narrowing in most of countries in Western Balkan, except for Macedonia and Montenegro, is below, fiscal deficit is below Maastricht criteria. Public debt decline in all countries, and this is simultaneous effect of two processes. One is the fact that GDP, total GDP, was pushed by inflation, and the other one is stable local currency. Since inflation took downturn in 2023, we can expect deterioration of this parameter. So this is the fact that all economies of Western Balkan has low competitiveness. Except for Serbia, the trade deficit in goods is above 20% of GDP in each and every country. Trading goods with the European Union, you can see that European Union is the main trade destination for the Western Balkan countries. Therefore, the EU accession is of the highest importance for all countries. The second partner is intra-regional trade. It is very much important for all countries in Western Balkan. I'll give you, just for comparison reason, the one fact. The export of Serbia to Bosnia and Herzegovina is higher than export to China and Russia. So, for all countries from this region, intra-regional trade is very important. Net service export pick up in 2022, which was expected, and it is contributed to the overall trade balance, which was worsened except for Albania in 2022. Current account deficit widened in 2022 in most countries of the region. That deterioration was mainly driven by further worsening of the merchandise trade deficit, first of all, price of commodities. But that current account deficit was mainly covered by foreign direct investments, on average with 80%. So we have a still huge net FDI inflows in all Western Balkan countries, as well as capital expenditures. But still, we are struggling with unemployment, in particularly with young unemployment, which is double to overall unemployment rate. Now I would like to show you the picture about inflation. As Peter said, we know how to deal with the inflation in our region. After peaking in 2022, inflation took downward trend. And for Albania, Kosovo, and Macedonia, inflation was below 5% in August this year. and for the rest of the country above 5%. Inflation mostly was pushed by food inflation, not energy prices, but food inflation. And you can see that food price inflation also is having downward trend. I will see you comparative indicators how the others see Western Balkan countries. And you can see that from the point of economic freedom, Western Balkan countries belong to the group of partially free countries. From the point of corruption perception index, you can see that half of the countries from the Western Balkan perceived as corrupted, and the rest as problematic. Also, from the point of quality of democracy, all countries belong to the group of hybrid or hybrid regime transitional countries. And finally, according to Reporter Without Borders, countries like Serbia, Albania, Bosnia, and Kosovo are problematic, while the others are having satisfactory status. Finally, credit ratings. Serbia needs one step to get investment grade. All other countries are far behind Serbia. And you know the story about accession to European Union. I would call it never-ending story. Serbia and Montenegro are deep in negotiation. Albania and North Macedonia opened negotiation last year. Bosnia has granted with the candidate status, and Kosovo is still waiting to get the candidate status. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A lot of facts and figures in a, let's say, very huge nutshell. I would like to come back to one aspect. You mentioned the unemployment among the younger generation. What is the main reason for it, from your perspective?
First of all, unemployment among young generation is declining. But this is not the fact of opening the new working places. This is the fact that the migration, economic migration toward developed Western countries are in place. The reason is lack of the quality working places in the Western Balkans.
So not the lack of education, lack of the working places? Okay. I tried.
They are easily finding the working places in Germany, Austria, and the other countries. Yeah. So that means that it is not lack of education, but lack of new working places.
Nevertheless, I built the bridge to education. It's my second try now to Dr. Barbara Kolm. I would like to focus with you a little bit on the educational aspect in our discussion and invite you as the president of the Hayek Institute and strategic partner of Vienna Economic Forum to bring a little bit light in this aspect.
Well, thank you very much. This is truly a big issue, the brain drain that we have seen just during the past 20 years from not only from the Balkans, from the entire Eastern European region, is a dramatic disaster, actually, because a lot of money is invested in this young generation and they are super well educated. And I would say that in contrast to many of the Western young people, they know what the achievement principle is, they know what competition is, and they know what self-responsibility is. And those values are what we need on our labor markets. And so those young people are definitely sought for on the first hand. And secondly, of course, if you have the opportunity to have a much higher income in Western Europe or even further away, because we see those young people going to the US and Canada or Latin America because their opportunities are much better. So it is upon us to literally provide the labor and business locations there. And what does this mean? this means competitiveness and competition for those labor places. And we have very successful companies here on the panel that have shown and have proven in Eastern Europe that this can be done. And I'm very proud as a former vice president of the Austrian Central Bank that those institutions are in the financial industry. And therefore, I think we should look into those investments that can be done. And talking about the policies, I would also like to look at the challenges that we face on that front, because we, and at least in Western Europe, it's clear in the Eurozone that we have mixed up fiscal policy and monetary policy. And there, I think our Eastern partners were more prudent and have been much more careful on that front and kept that strictly apart. And this is why they obviously also have different issues with regards to inflation and the amount of money being circulated, but also the next topic that I would just simply like to discuss here is interest rates. This will be something that will hit the industry, not only in the West, it has already, but it will also in the East. But coming back to education and the students that we have been working over the past 16 years in more than 100 institutions across Central and Eastern Europe, those kids know exactly what they want. They have a target up there, which unfortunately, and this was mentioned not only by former Chancellor SCHÜSSEL, but by many of our speakers here, directly or indirectly, you know, what is the task of government? It's not to provide handouts, it's to provide opportunities and a framework. And this framework is still working in Eastern Europe, whereas with us, we believe in the West, we believe in the achievement principle. And this is a no-go, at least not these times anymore. And looking at the fiscal situation of our states in the Eurozone, which is definitely fragile, we can learn, and our next generation can learn from what is happening in Eastern Europe. So I'm very positive for Eastern Europe, and I think the challenges are, of course, there, but if we are able to provide foreign direct investment continuously there, we should be able to have a good outlook for these countries, which will bring the West as well up in an upwind again.
Thank you, Dr. Kalm. Thank you for bringing together and connecting so many of the perspectives we heard already. And we close the perspective sharing with the brand new member of the Vienna Economic Forum, with the chairman of the management board of Glav Bolgastroy Holding GBS from Bulgaria.
Thank you very much. It's a great opportunity for me as a representative of the private sector to share our opinion about the challenges and the opportunities we can face in Europe and in Southeastern Europe as a part of it. Speaking about challenges, probably the main challenges of every individual and society is the security, which was brought in the first panel, and it's not really a lot the private sector can do about it. So I'll move to the three main challenges we see from our point of view as one of the biggest EPC and the construction company in the region, in the Southeastern Europe. So they're pretty much similar to my colleagues from the panel already mentioned, but I can repeat them in a different angle. So the inflation is one of it, the second is the energy prices, and the third is the access to labor, no matter it's qualified or non-qualified, and more or less non-qualified is bigger challenge. So the combination of those three challenges is jeopardizing the meaning of the word sustainability and resilience and predictability in the region, because it's really damage the efficiency of using the public sector funds, the efficiency of the private companies' operations, and every individual's working and life. So speaking about inflation. The first point, it's not a lot that the private sector, and especially from our point of view, we can do about it. We can speak about public-private partnership as a partial solution, but it's working the other way around. There's difficult access to funds and increasing the cost of funding. It's a problematic for public-private partnership for sure. But then speaking about the price of energy, it's something as a blue ocean at the moment in Europe and Southeastern Europe, because we can take, for example, renewables. We can invest in renewables, and this way it's really enormous amount of new energy sources we can find, and then we can decrease this problem quite a lot, and then increase the efficiency of the production in Europe, which definitely is a problematic at the moment. So as a company, for example, we are digging in all the different areas, and that no matter whether it's geothermal energy or small modular reactors using the nuclear. As you know, Bulgaria is a nuclear country for decades already, or it's solar panels or offshore winds or different sources. I mean, digging in all these fields sooner or later will bring a new source of energy over Europe and Southeastern Europe partially. Not mentioning the hydrogen, not forgetting the hydrogen as well. It's probably also the future storage, and not only the storage but the source of energy for sure. So combining the efforts of the private sector and the state here, and state, I mean that taking a different approach for the regulations and the administrative burdens which are put by the sometimes European Union and the frame of some of the states, it's decreasing the speed of this process. So the state can also support the private sector in this area. And the third challenge I mentioned about the people, it's different for different countries in Europe, but in general we see already second generation not seeing their parents working and seeing their parents living in the social assistance, which is especially happening in some countries of the Central Europe. And in this way, the Southeastern Europe, it's slightly different, but we already have this challenge of having not only qualified but unqualified people as well. And our kids, they are not ready to work. It's generation. I mean that some of them are extremely well educated, but they not used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 and go to work for 8 to 10 hours a day. It's a challenge. And so in terms of private sector, as a company also, we can provide education, we can provide also integration for, as a company, we integrate the third generation of the kids, of the workers and colleagues who are welcome in the business, but also from the point of view of states, it could be supported with opening the borders, and as the Councillor spoke in the first panel about EU integration and integration of the new countries in EU, and also accepting Romania and Bulgaria in Schengen. This all can support the free moving of people, which is one of the core values of European Union, and support also to solve this issue. So that's our, very briefly speaking, about the challenges and how we see the opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you. With this said, we have closed our first round. My perception so far is that you are very clearly addressing the issues, and that you have concerns also for the younger generation on the one hand, but on the other hand, my perception is that you are possibilists in the best way, as Dr. SCHÜSSEL told us this morning. So really looking forward to the future in a realistic and positive way. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the possibilities, the responsibilities, the actions, what should be on the top of the agenda for the future. Mr. KAKOURIS, I would like to come back to what you said in your speech, that EIB is the bank of the European Union, and you support both the public and the private sector. Could you tell us a little bit more specifically about the support in the private sector in the region?
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. First of all, I have to say about the priorities, climate change, competitiveness, innovation, the fact is there. As I said in my speech, the last few years, since, if I remember well, since 2009, the bank lent to the area around 11 billion euros. 40% of that amount it went to the private sector. If I remember well, the figure is 5.6 billion euros, and we have lent to SMEs through local banks, intermediary banks in the area, retaining around 900,000 jobs. So the bank is also for the private sector. There are various financial instruments which are for the private sector. I urge the local people to come to conduct our offices in the countries or the regional offices here in Vienna in order to find out. Comparing to let's say, to the period that my country was in the process for accession 25 years ago, there is a tremendous advantage. Now we have the internet, so what we do is open, it's very visible. And if somebody wants to find it, they can find it. So, I mean, I urge the people really to see what the bank is doing in the area and to bother the colleagues who are in the area in order to get as much as they can. This is our mission, I mean, to help people, to help the economies of the area, and we are open. And as I said, I mean, there are many instruments for the private sector. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Probably you could be so kind to pass the microphone to Mr. BOWMAN. As well with you, I'm looking for best cases for examples, detailed examples, how EBRD is addressing these challenges.
So thank you for that. And I want to come back to your point about opportunities because, you know, so many difficult challenges in the world, but I think it's right that we also focus on the opportunities. And two points that I really want to make. First of all, in the field of renewable energy, where I think we see enormous potential across the region, and in fact, with the war on Ukraine and the energy crisis, I think a number of us were worried that the focus of the attention would be taken away from climate change. But actually, you've seen a number of countries really getting serious about renewable energy. Because it makes sense, because it makes economic sense in terms of cheaper energy, because it makes sense in terms of more secure energy, and of course it makes sense from a climate perspective as well. So I think that is a very kind of exciting opportunity. And then second, and you know, this is very much in line with the mandate of the EBRD and the work that we try to do, the importance of economic integration. And in today's world of geopolitical tensions and all the difficult crises we face, the importance of each economic integration remains. And of course, the EU enlargement process is a very important process. And just to pick up on an earlier comment, it's very important that it doesn't become that it isn't a never-ending story, but it's a force for transformation and for modernization in the way that it was in Central and Eastern Europe.
Yeah, let's continue with Dr. Bucher, because I see you here sitting as a strong alliance, as you told already before, you three also. So probably you could add from your point of view where you see the opportunities.
Yeah, I see the huge opportunities on the private and SME sector. Yeah, we are financing around now 15 billion as the group and Sparkassen in the region, and most of the part is for SME and corporate and private customers. So we are supporting definitely the countries on the public level as well, but our main focus out of our history as savings banks, we are focused on the SME, and we believe there we can really support a broad basis of the economy. And coming back to my main topic in my first, I think there we can also fight the brain drain. If we support in Bosnia, for example, the Entrepreneurship Academy, which is an academy to support in all fields of the enterprises young entrepreneurs in order to help them building up their own business and to stay in the country. And I think this is the big challenge. There we have to focus in order to avoid the kind of disastrous scenario I would see if we let the flow of people running like it is today, if we let this flow continuing for the next 10 years, I think then there will be kind of a wake-up call for a Marshall Plan for the region and things like that, and that would be really a pity.
Due to the fact that you mentioned now the brain drain, it was like, for me, it was like passing the talking stick to Dr. Kolm, and that's what I do now, to continue here with these ideas of Dr. Bucher.
Well, of course, from a policy perspective, I think we have to refrain from the idea of one size fits all and truly understand that we need competition. And we also need this competition on a local and regional level in order to be competitive, because after all, I mean, it's Europe that is competing with the rest of the G7, of the G6 these days. And if we want the next generation to be part of that, then our policy has to also look into the subsidiarity principle and allow private initiatives, support private initiatives, foster them. And we've seen that with the universities and the education system in Eastern Europe. Those private initiatives are much more advanced, and there we need to look to I would rather say take the positive points of it, allow that to also go back to Western Europe and bring those kids into our systems. Because when we have interns, for example, from Eastern Europe, working in Vienna, working in other places in Western Europe, those guys know exactly how to achieve, what to do, what needs to be done. I mean, you can say, of course, there is always difficulties, as you mentioned before, but in general, it's a much better system. And after all, you can't take things for granted. And this is what those kids still have in mind and understand, and what policymakers also on that, at least on the educational front, fully understand. And here we can learn, and we should be challenged rather by all of you, and this would help us in say, the lazy, don't get me wrong, in the lazy Western European countries. So this competitiveness is good. After all, you know, what drives innovation? It's exactly those things that if we push people forward to be creative, then it will work. And last sentence on that front, I mean, the division of labor has made us big and has brought success to Europe, but it was also the diversity. And without diversity, there are no creative processes. And without creative processes, there won't be innovation. And without innovation, there won't be patents and IP. And without IP rights, we will lose out as Europe as a whole. And that's why all those simple processes must not be looked at as in a silo, but it's a comprehensive issue that we all need to fix together.
You were looking at the right side right before to your neighbor. So is this what you would, is this your requirement, and is this what you wish from the cooperation partners?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I see that time is running in a construction business. We are very much addicted to the time and budget. So I'll be very quick. Yes, it's collaboration can bring value definitely, and talk about the partnership between the public and private, especially about the PPPs. Shortly speaking, can bring two values. The PPP decrease the timing for everything which has to be developed, whether it's infrastructure or something else, and it increased dramatically the efficiency of the public spending because of the motivation. So those dialogues are really important, and we have to go forward in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to come back to you, to Mr. POLAT. Turkey has served in the last 2 decades really as a significant, let's say, a haven for FDIs, accumulating a total worth of over $250 billion. So in the current economic climate, things have changed a lot with the high inflation and the ongoing efforts by the central bank and the Ministry of Finance to stabilize the matters. What are your primary areas of focus for achieving the next stage of growth?
Well, thank you very much. I briefly answered this question in my first answer, but just to recap, although we are having this high inflation and other challenges, we still continue to bolster the reform process, because that's the foundation of all our efforts. Turkey is still a resilient, fast-growing economy with 5.4% in the last 20 years average growth rate. We have still the young, talented workforce that we depend on. That's the future of the country, we believe, apart from everything. And additionally, for the last decades, additional to geostrategic location, we added all the infrastructure and superstructure investments, which makes, again, an additional added value to Turkey being a natural hub. Energy has been mentioned. It's a very critical sector as well. We have been liberalizing energy market. There are lots of focus with the sustainability. Just like I said in the resilience part, sustainability is not also a solo game. It's not a standalone game. It requires a joint effort between countries and cooperations. And I think, for example, the installed capacity of the country, Turkey, 100 gigawatts at the moment, 55% is coming from the renewable resources. And I think at the near future, again, this will be the main agenda. Green hydrogen, green ammonia, or SMR, small and medium-sized nuclear power plants are on the focus. Last but not least, I think, as general investment practitioners, our traditional way of looking to changed and evolved, because each and every investment promotion agency has been trying to attract more projects to their own country. But now, with this global environment and everything is going on around us, companies, international investors, sovereign wealth funds, venture capitals, they are looking for a wider range of economic stability, not only for a country. So I think we should be working together to enable this a wider range of economic stability altogether. That's the key in the coming years.
That's the key, yeah. So with regards to the timing and coming slowly to an ending point, I would like to start with you and give you the chance to do more than one sentence, and the other ones I would like to invite to really try to briefly bring it in one sentence. What would be your appeal to the audience here, to the corporation members? So what, from your perspective, is the key message in order to be able to face the future in this spirit of possibilism? And as you are the first, you have more than one sentence.
Digitalization. What we have learned in our group, Central Eastern Europe is more advanced in digitalization than Western Europe. So what you are calling the bridge in digitalization is from Bulgaria, from Romania, from
Reverse
Poland.
bridge.
We are learning in Austria. Our centers in digitalization towards customers is not in Vienna, it's out in the region.
Mr. Vlahovic, what would be your appeal, your main message for the audience, for the partners here?
Thank you very much. My message goes to the governments of the Western Balkan countries, and this is, in one word, it's building strong institution. This is, as I can see now, is the main obstacle for the faster growth, main obstacle for the rapid growth which Western Balkan countries needs if they want to have a fast convergence with European Union. I agree with Mr. Bucher that private investment, domestic private investment, there are huge opportunities, but they're very much reluctant to invest because of the very weak and not enough independent institution. And that is something which should be homework for the governments of the Western Balkan countries.
As you go with Mr. Bucher in the mindset, I invite him next to let us know what is your key message for the final closing round.
No alternative to the accession of those countries, and if there are alternatives, please, as I said before, make them as detailed as possible that the local population has something to look after and to orientate themselves. Do some good. My appeal to the politician, do some good and speak about. Thank you very much.
Some good and let's speak about. Thank you, Mr. Bucher. Mr. BOWMAN.
So one sentence, good governance, economic integration and multilateral cooperation.
I continue with you, Mr. KAKOURIS.
Just say, I think it's climate change. I think we have climate threat around here, and I think we have to concentrate to bridge our present with the future. I mean, there are, I don't want to expand on that, but I think we are threatened here, so we have to concentrate on climate change. Thank you.
So a green message. Mr. POLAT, I heard that you had also a message going strongly into this direction.
I think we should do what we are doing, keep going, maybe harder, better, and we should come more often to talk and discuss. I think that's the platform that we should continue to do.
Thank you. Mr. Peshov, then I close with Dr. Kolm.
Yeah, thank you. I'll quote our Deputy Prime Minister from yesterday, and she quoted what is written in the Bulgarian government. It's united, we are stronger. So every country in Europe has what to give and what to take from the others, and let's be united.
Definitely. Yeah, united, you're stronger, so true. Dr. Kolm.
Well, provide the right framework for foreign direct investment, and that's just, make sure rule of law is always there. Low taxation is, I think, something, tax competition is key, and little bureaucracy. And with that, you will always have access to capital. And once you have access to capital, you create growth.
Thank you so much. I think for this, you deserve already a first applause. And I look into the audience. If there are questions, then I would open up the floor for questions also from you. I think due to the timing, yeah, we are allowed to have at least 2 or 3 questions. No questions. Here is one question. Could we have a microphone for the sir here in the back row? And please tell us if you address this question to a speaker or to all of them, and we see then who is willing to answer.
Congratulations, my name is Günther Fellinger. I'm very active in Southeastern Europe. My question is about high-speed railways and about the investment drive we could do from the international organizations for Southeastern Europe. In the last 20 years, the Chinese have been able to build high-speed railways everywhere in China. Basically, in the most remote village, they have connected. And we in Europe, we are driving still in buses in southeastern Europe. I travel myself very often by bus to Sarajevo, to Pristina. My back is hurting. And maybe you could invest a little bit more and build the infrastructure which we need to make it attractive to live and to work in southeastern Europe. Thanks a lot.
So it was a comment, a suggestion. Not really a question. Yeah, please, Mr. Peshov. Yeah, you're the
Just
one.
Just a very quick response. It's not a question of technical possibility or something. It's European Union has something different from China. It's regulations, and you have environmental regulation, which is very severe. You have DG Environment in EU. Welcome. And then you have serious protection of the landowners' property. So taking this in consideration, some of the projects in Europe can take ages and decades. So it's just different world. It's not a question of technical point of view.
If there is no other question, I think you deserve a coffee break, and there is another question, sorry. Before we going into the coffee break, the lady here, yeah, please.
First of all, I would like to thank you for your speeches. It was so interesting to listen to them, because today I'm representing students. And my question is, Ukraine becoming an EU member has been a hot topic in recent weeks and months. So my question is, what are the financial and economic challenges of Ukraine becoming an EU member, considering the ongoing war? Thank you. Thank you.
So that's the question who I'm looking here on your side, yeah?
I can start, though I'm not a politician. I'm a vice president of the European Investment Bank, which is a financing arm, let's say, of the European Union. It's the decision that our masters, the politicians, that they took about the accession of Ukraine, it's there. I mean, what we're doing, at least in our bank, what we're doing is that to reconstruct the country, and the reconstruction is already started. I mean, European EIB is already financing projects around 1.7, I think it was the number in 2023, larger amount from the EBRD. So I think as the situation is currently on our side as financial institutions, we are there, we are assisting in reconstruction of the bank as no matter what. Mr. Bowman.
So, I mean, just to add, so the financial implications of the war on Ukraine, the resources that Ukraine needs, both through the war, but as you go into reconstruction, are very, very significant, and it's very, very important that the international community continues to support Ukraine and avoids the risk that kind of attention diverts to other crises. Obviously, you need to focus on other crises, but also need to continue to focus on Ukraine. The scale of the financing is very significant. We're an important player in terms of providing support to Ukraine, and will be in the reconstruction, working with other organisations like the EIB. The importance also of policy reform, because the scale of the resources is so significant that private sector investment will be necessary as well. And obviously, the private sector investment requires peace and security, but it also requires a good business environment and economic and political reform. So those are the kind of big challenges for Ukraine going forwards. Much bigger question, or different question about implications within the EU of reform, but I think that's probably for another day.